The sky turned black with ships. Taesung stood on the hill and watched them come down. There were so many that they blocked the sun. The shadows fell across the valley like a dark blanket, and the ground shook with the sound of their engines. He had known this day would come. Everyone on New Bizan had known. The Valori Empire had conquered 300 star systems. They had never lost a war. And now they had come for this small human colony on the edge of known space. Hana ran up the hill to stand beside him. She was breathing hard from the climb. In her hand, she held a small computer that showed the enemy numbers. 1 million soldiers, she said. They are landing in the Jiri Valley. Taesung did not look away from the sky. How long until they reach the city? If they march straight here, 6 hours. But they will not do that. They will surround us first. They want to make sure no one escapes. Good, Taesung said. Hana looked at him with surprise. Good? Commander, we have 8,000 soldiers. They have 1 million. The math is not in our favor. Taesung finally turned to look at her. His face was calm, almost peaceful. The Valori are very good at math. That is why they will lose. He walked down the hill toward the bunker entrance. Hana followed him, still confused by his words. The bunker was deep underground. It had taken the colonists 20 years to build it. The walls were thick stone and metal. The tunnels went for kilometers in every direction. Some led to other bunkers. Some led to hidden exits in the mountains. And some led to places the Valori would never expect. Inside the main command room, soldiers worked at computer screens. They tracked the enemy ships. They counted the troops. They watched the Valori army spread across the valley like water filling a bowl. Sergeant Deho was waiting for them. He was an older man with gray in his hair and scars on his hands. He had fought in 3 wars before this one. None of them had been this big. The civilians are in the deep shelters, he reported. All 40,000 of them. The children were scared, but their parents told them it was like a camping trip. And the soldiers? Taesung asked. Ready. Scared too, but ready. They know what we are fighting for. Taesung nodded. He walked to the main screen and studied the enemy formation. The Valori were organized and careful. They moved in perfect lines. Their equipment was the best in the galaxy. Their soldiers were tall and strong, with natural armor on their skin and forearms that could hold multiple weapons at once. Humans had none of these things. They were soft. They were small. They had only 2 arms and no armor at all, but humans had something else. Show me the valley map, Taesung said. Ha-Na brought up a 3-dimensional image of the Jiri Valley. It was shaped like a long bowl, with mountains on both sides and only 2 ways in or out. The Valori were entering from the east, where the valley was widest. They chose this landing zone because it gives them room to organize, Hana explained. 1 million soldiers need a lot of space. They will set up their camp here, then march on the city tomorrow. They studied us, Taesung said. They know our population. They know our military strength. They probably know what we eat for breakfast. And based on all that information, they expect us to do one of 2 things. Surrender or run, Deho said. Exactly. In their experience, that is what weak species do. And by their math, we are very weak. Corporal Yuno looked up from her sensor station. She was young, barely 20 years old, but her eyes were sharp, and her mind was sharper. Commander, the Valori ground commander is broadcasting a message. He's offering terms of surrender. Play it. The alien voice filled the room. It had been translated into human language, but it still sounded strange and cold. Humans of New Bizan, I am War Leader Torvin of the Valori Empire. You have seen our strength. You know you cannot win. Surrender now, and your lives will be spared. You will become workers in the Empire. This is not a punishment. This is mercy. You have 1 hour to respond. The message ended. The room was silent. Private Jinho spoke first. He was Yuna's age, with nervous hands that never stopped moving. What do we do, Commander? Tae-sung smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had a secret. We wait, he said. We let them land all their troops. We let them feel safe. And then we show them something they have never seen before. What is that? Jinho asked. Humans fighting for their home. He turned to Diho. Sergeant, begin phase 1. I want scouts in the mountains within the hour. Tell them to stay hidden. Tell them to watch. And tell them that when the signal comes, they will need to be ready to move fast. Daeho saluted and left. Tae-sung looked at the screen one more time. 1 million enemy soldiers were now on his planet. They had better weapons, better armor, and better numbers. By every measure that mattered to the galaxy, this war was already over. But Tae-sung knew something the Valori did not. He knew that humans had spent their entire history being outmatched. They had fought lions with sticks. They had faced armies with farm tools. They had survived ice ages and plagues and wars that should have ended them. And they were still here. Send our response to the Valori, he told Yuna. What should I say? Tae-sung thought for a moment. Then he said, tell them, come and take it. War leader Torvin stood on a hill and watched his army with pride. 1 million soldiers filled the valley below. They moved like a great machine, each part doing its job perfectly. Tents rose in neat rows. Weapons were checked and prepared. Supply ships landed and unloaded food and ammunition. This was the might of the Valori Empire. 300 conquered worlds stood behind them. No enemy had ever stopped them for long. His second officer, a younger Valori named Keth, approached with a report. The humans sent their response, war leader. What did they say? They said, come and take it. Torvin made a sound that was almost like laughter. Brave words from a doomed species. How many soldiers did they have? Our scouts report 8,000. Perhaps 10,000 if they arm their workers. And we have 1 million. This will not even be a battle. It will be a demonstration. Torvin had studied humans before coming here. He knew they were physically weak. They had no claws, no armor, no venom. They could not see in the dark or hear beyond normal ranges. On paper, they were one of the weakest species in the galaxy. He did not understand why the Empire had waited so long to conquer them. Move the army forward at dawn, he ordered. We will reach their city by midday. By sunset, this planet will belong to the Empire. Deep underground, Tae-sung watched the same army through hidden cameras. Yuna sat beside him, counting enemy units as they set up camp. They are past the second marker, she reported. Almost all of them are inside the valley now. How many are still outside? Maybe 50,000. Rear guard units. They are protecting the supply ships. Tae-sung nodded slowly. 50,000 was still a lot. But 1 million was the real problem. And right now, that 1 million was walking into a trap they could not see. Hana entered the command room with a tablet in her hands. She looked tired but excited. The chemical systems are ready. The drones are ready. The charges are ready. Everything is ready. Are you sure about the chemicals? Tae-sung asked. We have never used them on Valori before. I am sure. I spent 6 years studying their biology from captured data. Their skin armor is strong against weapons, but it cannot protect their lungs. The gas will not kill them quickly, but it will make them slow and confused. It will make them afraid. And us, we will be fine. The gas does not affect human biology. We can walk right through it. Tae-sung looked at the screen again. The enemy army was now packed tight in the valley. They thought they were preparing for an easy victory. They did not know they were standing in a killing ground. Tell the scouts to fall back, he said. Tell everyone in the mountains to seal their positions. In 30 minutes, this valley becomes a grave." The order went out. Across the mountains, human soldiers disappeared into tunnels and caves. They sealed the entrances behind them and waited in the dark. In the valley, the Valori noticed nothing. They were too busy setting up their camp. They were too confident in their strength. That at exactly midnight, the trap was sprung. The first explosions came from both ends of the valley. They were not meant to kill. They were meant to close the exits. Millions of tons of rock fell from the mountain walls and blocked the narrow passages. Dust filled the air. The ground shook. War leader Torvin stumbled out of his tent. "What is happening?" he shouted. "Are we under attack?" Before anyone could answer, the second wave began. Small holes opened in the valley floor. From these holes came a yellow gas that spread quickly through the camp. Valori soldiers breathed it in before they knew what was happening. Within minutes, they were coughing. Their eyes were burning. Their movements became slow and clumsy. "Gas masks," Torvin ordered. Everyone put on gas masks. But the gas was faster than his orders. It spread like water, filling every space. Soldiers fell to their knees. Some tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. The exits were blocked. Then the drones came. They rose from hidden places all around the valley. Thousands of them. Small machines with simple weapons. Each one could only kill 1 or 2 soldiers, but there were so many of them. They flew through. The gas like metal insects, firing at anything that moved. Torvin watched his perfect army fall into chaos. Soldiers ran in every direction. Some shot at the drones. Some shot at nothing. Some just fell down and did not get up. "Form defensive lines," he screamed into his communicator. "Shield units to the front. Fight back." Some units obeyed. They were well trained, and even in chaos, they remembered their training. Energy shields came up, creating safe zones where the gas could not reach. Soldiers gathered behind these shields and began shooting down the drones. Within 2 hours, the drone attack was over. The Valori had lost 200,000 soldiers, but 800,000 were still alive. They were hurt and scared, but they were still an army. Torvin gathered his remaining officers. His armor was scorched and his breathing was rough, but his eyes were full of anger. "They think tricks will save them," he said. "They think they can scare us. They are wrong. We are the Valori. We do not run. We do not surrender. We adapt and we conquer." He pointed at the blocked valley exits. "We will dig through that rock. We will find another way out. And when we do, we will burn their city to the ground." His officers cheered. They still believed they would win. Deep underground, Taesung heard the same speech through hidden microphones. He turned to Daeho with a grim smile. "They are not giving up," the sergeant said. "I told you they would not." "I know," Taesung replied. "That is why Phase 2 is ready. The drones were just the beginning. Now we show them what humans do when they are truly angry." He opened a channel to all hidden units. "All teams, this is the commander. Phase 2 begins now. Make them remember this day forever." In caves and tunnels all around the valley, human soldiers checked their weapons and started moving. The real fight was about to begin. The tunnels were dark and narrow. Most of them had been dug by miners 50 years ago, when the colony was young and looking for metal in the mountains. Now they served a different purpose. Sergeant Daeho led his squad through the darkness. There were 40 soldiers behind him, all moving in silence. They wore no armor. They carried light weapons. They looked like ghosts compared to the Valori, war machines outside. But looks could be wrong. Scout Yumbai was at the front of the group. She knew these tunnels better than anyone. She had spent years mapping them, marking safe paths and dangerous drops. Now that knowledge was worth more than any weapon. "The exit is 200 meters ahead," she whispered. It comes out behind their eastern shield position. About 30,000 soldiers. Guards? Daeho asked. None facing the mountain. They do not know this tunnel exists. Daeho smiled in the darkness. The Valori had scanned the mountains when they landed. They had found the big caves and the main tunnels. But they had not found the small ones. The forgotten ones. The ones that looked like natural cracks in the rock. Humans were good at hiding. Humans were good at waiting. And humans were very good at appearing where they were not expected. Everyone check your weapons, Daeho said quietly. We going fast. We hit hard. We disappear before they can react. No heroes, no staying the fight. We kill and we vanish. Understood? 40 voices whispered yes. They moved forward. The tunnel got narrower. Some places were so tight that soldiers had to turn sideways to squeeze through. A Valori, with their 4 arms and wide bodies, could never fit through here. That was the point. EUN-BY stopped at a thin crack in the rock. Through it, Daeho could see the enemy camp. Thousands of Valori soldiers stood in neat formations. Their shields glowed blue in the dim light. They looked strong and ready, but they were looking the wrong way. They were watching the sky and the valley floor. They were not watching the mountain behind them. On my signal, Daeho said. He raised his hand. His soldiers got ready. Some carried rifles. Some carried explosives. Some carried things Hana had made in her laboratory, things that would make a Valori very unhappy. Daeho dropped his hand. The crack in the rock exploded outward. 40 soldiers poured through the opening like water from a broken pipe. They did not shout. They did not hesitate. They simply started killing. The first shots took down the officers. Without leaders, the Valori formations broke apart. Soldiers turned to see what was happening, but by then the humans were already among them. At close range, the Valori's long rifles were clumsy. Their size became a problem. They could not turn fast enough to face enemies who were shorter and quicker. Daeho shot 3 soldiers in the time it took them to raise their weapons. Beside him, Yumbai threw a small device that exploded in a flash of white light. Valori screamed as their eyes were burned. 30 seconds. That was how long the attack lasted. Then Daeho gave the signal, and his soldiers vanished back into the tunnel. The crack was too small for the Valori to follow. Behind them, they left 2,000 dead enemies. This happened 17 times in 6 hours. Each attack came from a different place. Each attack hit a different target. The humans were everywhere and nowhere. They appeared from rocks and hills and places that should have been empty. They killed and they vanished like smoke. War. Leader Torvin stood in his command tent and watched the reports come in. Each one was worse than the last. His army was being eaten alive by an enemy he could not find. Where are they coming from? He demanded. We scanned every cave. We watched every hill. How are they doing this? His officers had no answers. They were as confused as he was. These tunnels must be very old, one of them said. Perhaps they were made before our scanners could detect them. The rock here contains metals that block our sensors. Then send soldiers into the tunnels. Hunt them down. We tried, war leader. Our soldiers do not fit. The passages are too narrow. Torvin slammed his 4 fists against the table. Then dig. Make the tunnels wider. I will not be defeated by rats hiding in holes. But digging took time. And time was something the Valori did not have. In the underground command center, Taesung watched the enemy death count rise. 400,000 dead now. Almost half their army was gone, and the humans had lost less than 1,000 soldiers. Hana was impressed. Daeho is doing better than I expected. The tunnel attacks are working perfectly. They will adapt, Taesung said. They always do. Soon they will stop grouping together. They will spread out and make smaller targets. When that happens, the tunnel attacks will become less effective. So what do we do then? Tae-sung pointed at the screen. Look at them. They are scared. They are confused. They do not understand why we are fighting like this. In their world, war is about numbers and weapons. The bigger army wins. The stronger soldier wins. They have never faced an enemy who refuses to fight fair. Because fair fights are stupid, Hannah said. Exactly. A fair fight means someone has made a mistake. We do not make fair fights. We make traps. We make surprises. We make the enemy afraid of every shadow and every rock. Yuna looked up from her station. Commander, the Valori are sending a message. They want to talk. About surrender? They say they want to negotiate. They say this war is costing too many lives on both sides. They are willing to discuss terms. Tae-sung laughed. It was not a kind laugh. They have lost 400,000 soldiers. We have lost 1,000. And they think we should negotiate. Tell them no. Tell them we will accept their complete surrender and nothing else. That will make them angry, Hana warned. Good. Angry enemies make mistakes. I have many more surprises waiting for them. He turned back to the screen and watched the Valori army struggle in the valley below. They were still strong. They were still dangerous. But they were starting to understand something important. They were not hunting humans. Humans were hunting them. By the third day, the Valori had stopped trying to march. They stayed in small groups behind their shields. They did not sleep. They barely ate. Every sound made them jump. Every shadow looked like Death. Medical officer Sun Young walked through the underground hospital and checked on her patients. Most of them had minor wounds. A few had lost limbs. But all of them were alive, and all of them would fight again. She stopped at a special room at the end of the hall. Inside, a Valori officer sat on a metal chair. His arms were tied, and his armor had been removed. He was bigger than any human, but right now he looked small and broken. Has he said anything useful? She asked the guard. He keeps asking the same question over and over. He wants to know why. Why what? Why we will not stop fighting. Why we will not surrender. He says his people studied us. They knew everything about us. They knew we could not win. Sun Young entered the room and sat across from the prisoner. He looked at her with eyes that had seen too much death. Do you speak our language? She asked. He nodded slowly. I learned it before we came here. I thought it would help me understand you. I was wrong. What do you not understand? The Valori officer leaned forward. His voice was tired and confused. We are stronger than you. We have better weapons. We have more soldiers. Every calculation said you should surrender in the first hour. Your own survival instinct should tell you that fighting is pointless. But you keep fighting. Why? Sun Young thought about the question. It was a good question. The Valori were not stupid. By their logic, everything they said was correct. Humans should have surrendered. It was the smart thing to do. Let me ask you something, she said. When your people conquer a world, what happens to the people who live there? They become workers. They serve the empire. Their lives are not pleasant, but they survive. And that is enough for your people? Just surviving? The Valori looked confused. Survival is the most important thing. Every species knows this. When you cannot win, you preserve your lives. You wait for another chance. You do not throw yourself against an impossible enemy. Sun Young smiled sadly. That is where you made your mistake. You thought survival was the most important thing to humans. But it is not. Then what is? Freedom, dignity, the right to choose our own future. These things matter more to us than survival. We would rather die free than live as slaves. The Valori shook his head. That is insane. That is not logical. No, Sun Young agreed. It is not logical at all. But it is human. She left the prisoner alone with his thoughts and went to find Taesung. The commander was in the war room, planning the next phase of attacks. Hana and Daeho were with him, along with a dozen other officers. They all looked tired, but none of them were ready to stop. The prisoner does not understand us, Sun Young reported. He thinks we are insane. Good, Taesung said. An enemy who does not understand you is an enemy who cannot predict you. Let them think we are insane. It will make them afraid of what we might do next. He turned to Daeho. How are the teams? Tired but still strong. We lost 50 soldiers in the last round of attacks. The Valori are getting better at defending. They have stopped bunching together, like you predicted. Smaller groups are harder to hit. Then we change tactics. No more large attacks. From now on, we make them fear the dark. Taesung walked to the main screen and pulled up a map of the valley. Red dots showed enemy positions. There were still 600,000 Valori alive, but they were scattered and disorganized. Their supplies were running low. Their morale was even lower. Tonight, we send single soldiers into their camp. Not to kill many. Just to kill one or two, quietly, without being seen. We want them to wake up and find dead soldiers next to them. We want them to wonder if they will be next. Yuna looked uncomfortable. That sounds cruel. It is cruel, Taesung admitted. War is cruel. But this cruelty will end the war faster. Every Valori who breaks down from fear is one less we have to kill. Every officer who stops trusting his soldiers is one less giving orders. We are not just fighting their bodies. We are fighting their minds. Hana understood. We are making the war too expensive for them. Not just in soldiers, but in sanity. Eventually, they will decide that no planet is worth this much horror. Exactly. The Valori Empire has conquered 300 worlds because those worlds gave up. They never faced a people who would rather die than surrender. They never faced a people who would turn war into a nightmare. He looked at each of his officers in turn. I know this is hard. I know some of you think we are becoming monsters. But remember what we are fighting for. Remember the 40,000 civilians in the shelters. Remember the children who are counting on us to keep them free. This is not about glory or honor. This is about survival. Their survival. The room was silent for a long moment. Then Daeho nodded. I will lead the first team tonight. The Valori will learn to fear the dark. That night, human soldiers moved through the enemy camp like shadows. They made no sound. They left no trace. And in the morning, the Valori found 30 of their comrades dead. Each one killed silently in their sleep. The screaming started at dawn and did not stop. War. Leader Torvin received reports of soldiers refusing to sleep. Officers demanded to be evacuated. Some units had simply stopped responding to orders. The great Valori army, the pride of 300 worlds, was falling apart from terror. Torvin sent a message to the Empire. Send more ships. Send more soldiers. These humans are not normal. These humans do not follow the rules of war. The Empire responded. There are no more ships to send. The humans have destroyed every rescue mission we launched. You are on your own. For the first time in his long career, war leader Torvin felt something he had never felt before. He felt afraid. On the 7th day, the last Valori soldier fell. His name was Keth, the young officer who had served war leader Torvin from the beginning. He had watched his commander die on the 5th day, killed by a sniper he never saw. He had watched his army crumble around him, eaten piece by enemies who refused to stop fighting. Now he stood alone on a small hill in the middle of the valley. His weapon was empty. His armor was cracked. Behind him lay the bodies of 1,000,000 soldiers who had come to conquer a small human world. None of them would go home. Daeho walked up the hill with his rifle ready. He had not slept in 3 days. His hands were shaking from exhaustion, but he kept moving because stopping meant thinking about everything he had done. Keth saw him coming and did not run. There was nowhere to run. The valley was sealed, and his people were dead. "You won," Keth said in broken human language. "I do not understand how, but you won." Daeho stopped a few meters away. "Do you surrender? Does it matter? Will you let me live?" Daeho thought about the question. He thought about the civilians in the shelters, waiting to hear if they would be free or slaves. He thought about the children who had been crying for 7 days, scared of the monsters in the sky. He thought about what the Valori would have done if they had won. "No," he said honestly. "We cannot let any of you leave. The Empire would send another army. This has to end here." Keth nodded slowly. He seemed to accept this. "Then may I ask you something before I die?" "Ask. How did you do it?" "We had everything. Numbers, weapons, experience. We have conquered worlds with 1/10 of this army. How did such a weak species destroy us?" Daeho lowered his rifle. The question deserved an honest answer. "We are weak," he admitted. "Our bodies are soft. We have no armor. We cannot fight you one-on-one. But we learned long ago that strength is not enough. Lions are strong. Tigers are strong. They are almost gone now. We are still here. Why? Because we do not fight fair. We do not fight for glory. We fight to win. We fight until the fight is over. We use every trick, every trap, every dirty tactic we can think of. And we never, ever give up." Keth looked at the valley filled with dead soldiers. "Your entire history is like this?" "Our entire history is nothing but this. War after war after war. We have been fighting each other for thousands of years. We got very good at it. You came to our world thinking you were the predators. You did not understand that we are the most dangerous predators in the galaxy." Keth closed his eyes. "Then the Empire was right to fear you. They said humans were too aggressive, too unpredictable to be trusted. I thought they were just making excuses. I was wrong." He opened his eyes one last time. "End it then. I would rather die to a worthy enemy than live knowing my people were beaten by creatures we thought were weak." Daeho raised his rifle. One shot. It was over. He walked back down the hill feeling older than he had ever felt before. Taesoon was waiting at the valley entrance with Hana and Soon-young. Behind them, soldiers were already beginning the terrible work of cleaning up. The bodies would have to be burned. There were too many to bury. "Is it done?" Taesoon asked. "It is done. 1,000,000 soldiers. 0 survivors." Hana checked their tablet. "The orbital defenses have destroyed 8 rescue ships and 3 negotiator ships in the last 7 days. The Empire knows what happened here. They are not sending any more." "Good." Taesoon looked at the sky. It was clear blue now. No more black ships blocking the sun. "What about the Galactic Council?" Soon-young answered. "They have been watching from a distance. They want to know how we did it. They want to know if we are a threat. What should we tell them?" Taesoon thought about it for a long time. He thought about his soldiers, many of whom would never sleep peacefully again. He thought about the civilians who could finally come out of the shelters. He thought about the future and what it would mean for humanity to be known across the stars. "Tell them the truth," he said finally. "Tell them that humans are not strong. We are not fast. We are not special in any physical way. But tell them that we have something no other species seems to have." "What is that?" Hana asked. "The willingness to do whatever it takes to survive." The refusal to accept defeat, even when defeat is certain. The ability to look at impossible odds and say, "We will find a way." He turned to face his officers. The Valori thought they were conquering a weak planet. They learned too late that weakness and danger are not the same thing. Make sure the Council understands this. Make sure the whole galaxy understands. Scout Yunbai approached with a communication tablet. "Sir, the Council is asking for a formal statement. They want to know what message we wish to send to the other spacefaring civilizations." Taesung took the tablet. He thought about all the species out there who might one day look at humanity and see prey. He wanted them to think twice. He wanted them to remember this day. He wrote, "Today, the Valori Empire sent 1 million soldiers against a human colony of 40,000 civilians and 8,000 soldiers. When the battle ended, 0 Valori soldiers survived. This is not a threat. This is a warning. Humanity does not want war. We want to trade, to explore, to learn. But if war comes to us, we will end it. We will not stop until every enemy soldier is dead. We will not surrender. We will not negotiate. We will fight with every weapon, every trick, every ounce of strength we have. Do not mistake our kindness for weakness. Do not mistake our desire for peace for inability to make war. We are humans, and we are not afraid." He sent the message. Hana read it and nodded slowly. "That should make them nervous." "That is the point," Taesung said. "Fear keeps us safe. Let them fear us. Let them think twice before sending another army. Let them remember that 1 million soldiers walked into this valley and 0 walked away." The sun set over New Bizen. In the shelters, children finally stopped crying. In the valley, fires burned the dead. And across the galaxy, other civilizations received the message and began to wonder if they had underestimated the small, soft, weak species called humans. They had. They all had, and none of them would make that mistake again.